equation for me has no meaning unless it expresses a thought of God, unquote. The Hindi translation of which means, मेरे लिए एक समीकरण का कोई महत्व नहीं है जब तक कि वे भगवान के कोई विचार को प्रस्तुत नहीं करता हो. Srinivas Ramanujan, whose birth anniversary is celebrated as National Mathematics Day, is a shining example of a mathematics genius. And inspired by his tremendous contributions in the field of mathematics, our college adheres to the core values of hard work, commitment, and dedication in the form of Nishtha, Dhriti, and Satyam. On this very day, several events across many educational institutions are conducted across the country to spread the importance of mathematics in humanity. I now request Principal Sir to felicitate our esteemed dignitary, Professor Ujjwal Kumar Singh Sir, with a token of appreciation. I also request Principal Sir to felicitate Dr. J. Gupta Sir with a token of appreciation. Thank you, sir. Born on 22nd December 1887 in the Erode district of Tamil Nadu, Ramanujan was a good student in his school days. After passing subjects in English, Tamil, mathematics, and geography with flying colors, he entered secondary school, where his interest in mathematics began. At an age when students struggled with algebra, trigonometry, and other arithmetic problems, Ramanujan not only mastered them, but also found theorems to certain trigonometric problems. Not many of us know that Ramanujan was such a brilliant student at the age of 10 that he could solve his mathematics examination in half the allotted time. It was during his school days that he obtained a library copy of the book on a synopsis of elementary results in pure and applied mathematics, and that proved to be a turning point in his life. By the age of 17, Ramanujan had already won a scholarship to study at a government arts college in Kumbakonam. However, His obsession with mathematics was so much that he failed in the other subjects, hence losing his scholarship. But Ramanujan continued with his pursuit of mathematics, enrolling himself in a degree college. But he also couldn't overcome his maths mania and dropped out. Penniless and without a degree, Ramanujan began tutoring students of mathematics for a living and also took a temporary position in an accountant's office. He also began contributing to the Journal of Indian Mathematical Society, where he started developing theorems and began investigating the properties of Bernoulli's theorem. Srinivas Ramanujan Iyengar was one of the rare genius minds of the early 20th century. He is regarded as India's one of the greatest mathematical geniuses of all times. His contributions in mathematics is not only limited to the Indian shores, but instead his credence, acknowledgement, and popularity is well recognized in abroad as well. With this, I now request Principal Sir Dr. S.P. Agarwal to enlighten us all with his words of wisdom. May we have a huge round of applause for him, please?
Thank you, Nidhi. Well, friends, good morning and welcome on this auspicious day, which is basically birthday of great Srinivasa Ramanujan. Also, the birthday of this institution, because if you can recall that in 2012, 22nd December, I believe, we laid the foundation of this building. And that was laid down none other than Professor Dinesh Singh, who was then the Vice Chancellor of this university. Well, very good morning. And today, this is a special occasion for all of us because we have a sense of belonging to this institution. And since we was named as Ramanujan, probably this institution has not looked back, and whatever we have thought, whatever we have aspired, whatever we planned has been executed since then. So it's really a matter of pride for all of us. Our chief guest today, none other than our chairman, Professor Sanjay Kapoor, who will be joining us online. Guest of honor, Professor Geeta Venkataraman, who is online with us. She is Dean Research and Professor of Mathematics at Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University. Also, she is advisor in our Center for Mathematics and Research. My mentor, Guru, Dr. J.L. Gupta, Member Executive Council. My senior colleague, who are always helpful in organizing these functions, J.N. Chaudhary, Dr. Lata Nirmalya, our governing body members, probably if someone has joined online, all other young colleagues, young friends, our students, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to this auspicious occasion on 133rd birth anniversary of Srinivasa Ramanujan. As you know, this is our annual lecture series. Up till now, 7 top class academicians, professionals have delivered lectures on this theme. Most of them mathematicians, computer scientists, historians, and today we are glad to have political scientists with us to give a flair of beauty to combine and interrelate mathematics, science, humanities, every subject on the earth. Because all of you know that today the whole world is looking forward to a specific integration, not only science, which is STEM, but arts and humanities into STEM. So that is the key. The other day, I was reading a book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari, a great historian. And the book he has written is basically not only history, not only politics, but technology, but biotechnology, and everything included in it. And he has also talked about the liberal democracy. Well, friends, all of you know that most of our nations are following democratic principles. But some of them, like Middle East, like China, Russia, they have their own models. We cannot say that that model is a communist model or dictatorship model. Well, they have their own model. And that may be successful model. We don't know. But as far as human beings are concerned, we believe that democracy is the best among all. Now, once we said this, but over the period, in last few years, last 10 years, I can say, that we have seen there are a lot of fallacies in liberal democracy. You can see from the world itself, the kind of statement made by President Trump after losing the elections, kind of problems are there in our country in spite of the best democracy in the world. So political scientists have to look into that. What are the limitations of this liberal democracy? That is very, very important so that we can learn better these democratic principles and implement all over the world. Well, another important thing, since last 1 year, because last lecture happened in December, and I tell you, COVID also started somewhere in November and December. Though the actual close down happened in March, all of us suddenly taken by surprise now what to do. All of us were united with families, a happy moment. As per Dr. T.K. Mishra, he has written in his journal editorial, where he said that is the best moment. And we all should be very, very happy. But do you think we were happy? We started creeping about that we cannot go out. We cannot travel. We cannot meet other people. Well, at least you are able to be with your families. Let us enjoy that. But nobody is really enjoying. Now, another important aspect. After a while, we start craving why we cannot go to the offices. Most of you know, at least this institution is really different. We all started coming immediately after the lockdown. May 13 or May 16, I don't remember. And we are regularly coming. And by the grace of God, some of us were infected, but everything is going fine. Well, this is all why I'm talking this is the mindset, which is very, very important. And happiness belongs to this mindset. Whatever is the situation, if we can adopt, if we can, think of, probably is best for the human beings. Now, another important thing, the challenge we face, how to engage our students. Well, all of you know, we made a lot of efforts that how our teachers should engage students online. And suddenly we faced problem, all of us. But at least this college was very effective. Immediately within a span of 2 weeks, I could see that most of you were engaged with your students. One way or the other, maybe one, media, another thing, that does not matter. And not only that, the challenge before us was how to train teachers from all the Delhi University colleges and all over the country to do online teaching. That was another challenge. And we thought of it, faculty thought of it. And all you know, the story is before you, that till now we have trained more than 80,000 teachers. And country adopted this technology much faster than any of the advanced world. I can say so. Of course, we had our limitations because people are poor in our country. They cannot afford technology. We don't have internet connection. There can be so many things. But similar problems are also there in advanced countries. Don't think sitting here that US does not have that problem. Europe does not have that problem. It is not like that. Every country is facing it. Countries like France said that we do not have proper resources for each and every village to teach our children. So the challenge is there. Only thing is how to take that challenge. Now, once we took that challenge and kind of we forgot what is going on, we were too busy in our work, whether it is teaching our students, guiding our colleagues, or learning from each other. That was also very, very important. Now, another important thing which we thought that students should be, trained into, how to keep them engaged besides online classes and how to take care of their mental and psychological problems. That was another issue. And all of you know that we organize several programs in this regard. Of course, we cannot reach each and every student, but whatever is possible, this institution has been trying to do. Now, if we recall that last 1 year, we can say that these are the things which we have achieved. But the planning is how to go about in next 1 year. That is also very important when we think of great Srinivasa Ramanujan, that how we should go ahead and how we can implement his philosophy, his genius into this institution. As Nidhi just said, well, he was not only a mathematician. That was his love, passion. But he taught so many other things to us. That within that adversity, how to lead a life. How his genius was recognized. And how his brain was working as a computer to do these equations. And I tell you, if you test, mathematicians must be here. Through the data, his all equations will come out to be true. That means he was doing calculation in his brain, which we are doing today on the computer. So this brain, this computer, has no match. Even if there is a technology or you can talk of anything. So the friends, basic thing is that let us use this to the maximum extent for the benefit of society, for the benefit of students, and also for our own benefit. Because unless until we apply, we will keep on thinking something else which is not desired, which will not lead us to happiness. See, if we are thinking too much, if we are trying to do something else which we do not like to, probably we cannot do that. If you are engaged in your work, because today, all of our religion, total religion is the academics, the research, welfare of our students and the society. So these are the things which are key to us. Another important thing, the environment Well, friends, all of you know that how we have exploited the environment, how this COVID, because we have left no space for our living animals, has created havoc in the society. Now, unless until we learn these lessons in 21st century, probably things might be worse. And you can see that there is another strain coming in UK, and probably whole world might be closed once again. So we have to be thinking, and thinking in the sense that every creature needs a space and we cannot encroach that space. This institution, as far as environment is concerned, you all know, we are taking all kind of steps, whether it is solar energy. In this year, 120 kilowatt of solar energy will be available to us. We already have 20 kilowatt. Then water conservation. We have two kinds of water conservation. One, recharging of ground. Another one, storage. About 3 lakh liters of storage is available with us. During the rain, whatever water comes, it is being stored. We can use that by refining anywhere or without refining in our fields. So these kind of initiatives are extremely important. And another important thing, our environment department, 2 girls have done wonderful job. Everything we recycle, even paper, electronic waste, plastic waste, nothing is being disposed of without proper disposal companies. Even our medical waste. The other day, nurse was coming to me, sir, we have some expired medicine. Okay, call the experts of medicine, the disposal people, don't throw them away. So these kind of initiatives, and you can see the kind of green campus we are trying to maintain, even during COVID. Each one of our staff, housekeeping staff, security staff, on my request, used to come and take care of this institution. So this is an achievement. This is all your achievement, that at least they are sensitive to the needs of the institution. Because I told them that whatever way you come, whether you come on cycle, on your foot, we will take care of you, but you have to reach to the institution. That is the key thing, and we could achieve. You can see that there was no problem. Everything was clean when you entered. Everything is green when you entered. Everything was in order. Our servers are working. Our labs are working. Otherwise, I could read in the paper that few colleges, their labs, there is a problem. There is a problem of fire in some colleges. So all kind of things we could prevent because of this. Then friends, another future thing which we are planning for next 1 year, we are going to have state-of-the-art artificial intelligence lab. As I said, technology is important, but only technology is a misnomer. So their historians, political scientists, linguistic people have to come to the rescue, that they have to interfere with the technology experts that, okay, these are the limitations, so you must take care of this. Otherwise, the big multinationals, big corporates, they will keep on doing the technology and making money, but forgetting the environment, forgetting the human beings, forgetting the living beings in this world. So that is the key. And that is why I always say that our young minds must involve the experienced people, because we have a lot of young technologists here. They must talk to the historians. They must talk to the experienced political scientists, linguistic people, how they can improve the standard of their technology in education, in research. That is a very key thing, because what is happening is we as a senior people does not want to intermingle with them. We don't want to learn technology from them, and those technologies, they don't want to learn our experience. So this is the problem. This gap needs to be filled in order to be very, very useful for the society. Then another thing important, which we are planning, and which we feel is important for interdisciplinarity. In this institution, as per you can understand, the new education policy might give us more freedom to work on curriculum, on subject, on structure, or any other thing. So we plan that this college should be divided into 3 schools: School of Humanities and Social Sciences, School of Mathematical Sciences, and School of Business, so that we can integrate all these departments into these 3 schools and can have a better structure, more research of interdisciplinarity, and better environment in this institution. Another important thing during this COVID, sir, you will be glad to know that our young researchers have done a wonderful job. They are not sitting idle at home. They have published in very good journals. And also, we have seen that some of them have extended their families, which is again a matter of joy during this COVID. So with this remark, and with this welfare of this institution, once again, I welcome you and thank our, speaker today, Professor Ujjwal Singh, and Professor Geeta Venkataraman, who will be joining us online, and our own Professor Sanjay Kapoor, Chairman, Governing Body, and all the governing body members who have been so helpful for this institution that whatever we plan, they are able to give us go ahead. So this is a fortune for this institution that in the last 13 years, I never faced any problem from any quarter, whether it is governing body, whether it is university, whether it is Ministry of HRD, nobody has interfered in our work. This is a fortune of this institution. This is the fortune of all of you. And, we look forward that if we are united, if we are working hard for the society, if we are working for our stakeholders, probably things will be much, much better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Your words have always motivated us and guided us to do so much well in our lives. Moving on and sharing some of a few anecdotes from Ramanujan's life. Ramanujan's life took a major turn in the year 1913 when his 10-page letter comprising of theorems on integrals, complex algebra, and various other mathematical problems reached Professor G.H. Hardy, an English mathematician from the University of Cambridge. He was so impressed by Ramanujan's mathematical ingenuity that he invited Ramanujan to Cambridge. Ramanujan reached University of Cambridge and cemented a 5-year-long association with him. It was during his stay in England that Ramanujan was awarded a BSc, which we now term as PhD, and which made him the youngest fellow of Royal Society. Now an acclaimed mathematician, Ramanujan returned to India, and years of stay in England took a huge toll on his life, resulting in an untimely death in the year 1920. In his lifetime, he has compiled more than 3,000 results on equations and identities, and many of them have been proved correct posthumously, which means after his death. In his memory, the government of India in the year 2012 celebrated that year as the National Mathematics Year and dedicated 22nd December as annual National Mathematics Day. In the year 2017, the significance of today's day, that is the National Mathematics Day, gained significance when a park on Ramanujan's name, which is Ramanujan's Maths Park, was inaugurated in the state of Andhra Pradesh. The government of India has also released postal stamps with Ramanujan's pictures on it in the year 2011, 2012, 1962, and 2016. Ramanujan also very rightly said, and I quote again, without mathematics, there's nothing you can do. Everything around you is numbers. Everything around you is mathematics. Quote, unquote. With this, I now request Professor Geeta Venkatraman, our guest of honor, to deliver a lecture on mathematics, science, and society, reaching new horizons. But before I call you ma'am, I would like to read a brief bio on you and your achievements. Dr. Geeta Venkatraman is a professor of mathematics at Ambedkar University, Delhi. She did her MA and doctorate in mathematics at the University of Oxford. Her areas of research lie in finite group theory. Professor Geeta did a BSc Honours in Mathematics at St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi, and in Lax Scholarship and the Burton Senior Scholarship from Oriel College, University of Oxford. Of assessment, evaluation, and student progression, Dean of Student, sorry, Dean of School of Undergraduate Studies, and as chairperson in the Committee for Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Ambedkar University. She has published several research papers and is deeply interested in popularizing mathematics, mathematical education, and issues related to women in mathematics. She has also served in several government initiatives related to both mathematics and education. Apart from her academics, her other interest areas lie in bird watching, and she is an avid photographer of birds. A photography of hers of the sudden grey shrike has appeared in the Handbook of Western Palearctic Birds, published by Bloomsbury, London. We welcome you, ma'am. I now request you, ma'am, to proceed with your lecture.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. Um, I'm assuming that people can hear me now. I'm really very glad to be part of this function today. The last time, of course, I was actually in the hall and delivering a talk to the maths faculty and maths students. I'm extremely happy to be part of the foundation day of the college. It seems like 2012 was a remarkable year in many ways. It was the 125th anniversary of Ramanujan's birth. It was the year that Indian government declared as the National Mathematics Day. And it was also from what I heard Principal Agarwal saying, it was the day that the foundation stone for Ramanujan College building was laid. So I'm extremely happy to be part of this event, the function today. I thought about what I might want to say to the audience, to the young students who are here. And one of the things that occurred to me is that in our school system, after 10th standard, we move into streams. We have the science stream, commerce stream, and the arts stream. And it serves its purpose in some ways, but I think for the larger purpose of our country, where we require science, society, mathematics, social sciences, and humanities all to come together to get a better understanding of things, it does leave students ill prepared for life itself. And what I hope to do today through my talk is to maybe point out to where these interfaces have worked and have worked very well. I particularly have enjoyed all the anecdotes or stories from Ramanujan's life that have been related. And being a mathematician, and I'm, when you look at the mathematics that Ramanujan did, it is the only word I can use is amazing. So I thought that before I actually discuss the issues that are forefront in my mind, which is how do we ensure that maths, science, social sciences, and humanities come together to create a new horizon for us. I wanted to share just a couple of slides related to Ramanujan. And, um, and since I'm in Bangalore delivering this lecture through a Zoom link, you'll have to pardon me if at times the technology doesn't work too well or my internet connection fails, but hopefully I will be able to convey my thoughts to all of you. So I'm just going to share a few slides and tell you more about how I think interfaces are very important and where I think we should be concentrating for our future. So I'll start by sharing the first slide that I have. So this is a slide which is of Srinivasa Ramanujan. And let me see. This is where I need to, here. I hope you can all see the screen that I have shared. This is the picture of Ramanujan, which you have in fact hanging in your auditorium. But I've surrounded it with a picture which is basically Ramanujan's own writing. So one of the things that Ramanujan did when he, of course, he got very inspired to do mathematics, and he fell in love with mathematics while he was at school. But inspired by the book that he read by Carr, he got into a habit of writing the mathematical thoughts that occurred to him and the various results that he thought of in mathematics in notebooks. So this is the picture surrounding Ramanujan's face is actually chapter 4 from one of his notebooks, in which he has recorded many of his results. But what strikes you as absolutely amazing, and I think this was something that uh, Principal Agarwal also had mentioned, is that he seemed to have been, genetically coded to do mathematics. That's all I can say. Because the kind of things that he thought about, the connections that he thought about, the way he was able to think his mathematics, I don't think has been replicated till now. And for him, of course, he felt that it was a divine gift. He was someone for whom mathematics, religion, life, all of it intertwined very nicely, and he couldn't do one without the other. The next slide that I want to share with you is again on Ramanujan's work, just a small set which is, about the impacts that his life had. I hope you can, I'm not sure whether you're able to see this. Can you see a slide which talks about impacts of Ramanujan's life. Or maybe wait, I need to redo this. Yeah, yeah. Now I think it's there. So Ramanujan had a very short life. He just lived for 32 years, 4 months and 4 days. And right up to the time when he passed away, he was working on mathematics. As I said, for him, life and maths went together. There wasn't one without the other. But the deep impact that he had then and now is there for everyone to see. In 1919, when he came back to India, the nationalist movement was beginning to gather speed. In this context, Ramanujan was seen as an Indian who had shown the world that Indians were more than equal to the best in the world. His impact on the mathematical world continues even now. I've listed below a list of mathematical equations, identities, theorems, all of which bear Ramanujan's name. And indeed, you have mathematicians discovering as they do their research that the current version of what they're doing was something that Ramanujan laid the seed of during his period of work. So it's amazing that the kind of mathematics that Ramanujan did in during his lifetime is still bearing fruit for a large number of mathematicians, and is telling them that what he found was, just a small part of a large whole which is still being discovered. The next thing that I want to share about Ramanujan is to do with how Ramanujan's statue or bust that is quite well known has come to, is being, actually came into being. So let me share a little story about that. So Ramanujan was married when he was very, very young to Janaki Amal, who was herself a little more than a child at that point. And at one level, the wedding also happened because in India, usually when a boy is not doing very well in his life, which had happened to Ramanujan around the time when he entered college, the marriage is usually seen as something that settles that person, and one feels that maybe if they become a householder, then the responsibilities related to that will make them strive more to do more. But Janaki Amal, she was very young when they married, and actually managed to spend very few years with Ramanujan before he went away to Cambridge to do all the wonderful mathematics that he did along with Professor Hardy. I want to talk about when Janaki actually turned 80 years old. There was an interview, I think it must have been around the 100th year of Ramanujan's birth. And there was an interview at that time about, there was a lot of news about Ramanujan, and someone interviewed her, and she said that, even though he's done so much for the country and has done so well, we still do not have, even a statue of Ramanujan. And the problem was that there weren't too many pictures that were available of Ramanujan. And in fact, the one of the pictures that came from which the bust was actually made is the passport picture that was taken for Ramanujan. So amongst the people, so what happened was mathematicians all over the world decided that they would contribute to this effort and collect money and commission the bust. And one of the people instrumental in that was a person again whom we recognize very well, the Nobel Prize winner and physicist Subramaniam Chandrasekhar. he is the one who got the photo, as I said, and this is the bust which was eventually made. I do recall that when I came to Ramanujan College, that you have a wonderful bust of Ramanujan in your lobby, and I was very, very pleased to see that. And what strikes me, and from Principal Agarwal's talk, is that the direction in which Ramanujan College is heading is also to come to bring together the sciences, mathematical sciences, the social sciences and humanities, and also business. And I look forward to the many things that might happen from Ramanujan College. When I come from a university which it's a social sciences and humanities university, and it prides itself on doing interdisciplinary work. And so in the next few minutes, I want to share with you some examples that I have found particularly inspiring when it comes to mathematics being part of society, and science and the links between science and society. So the next slide that I'm going to share with you is of a mathematician called Ingrid Dubashi. Um, so, I mean, one of the problems that we face in the STEM disciplines is a lack of women who are, the numbers of women who are doing well and reaching the highest positions, or even joining the STEM disciplines, is a problem that is being faced the world over. And Ingrid Dubashi stands out in this context. The mathematicians have something called the International Mathematics Union, which organizes the biggest maths congress once in 4 years. In fact, we had India hosted one in 2010, and Ingrid Dubashi actually became the president of the International Mathematics Union. And the ICM, or the International Congress of Mathematicians, is extremely important because that's where we give out our best prizes. I mean, what we have in mathematics is something called the Fields Medal. It's tougher than the Nobel Prize because you have to be below 40 to get that prize. And there are only 4 prizes awarded every 4 years, and they may not even award all 4. So it's a extremely challenging prize to get, and the Fields medals are announced in the ICM. So this picture that I've shared with you is from ICM 2018, which happened in Rio, Brazil. And Ingrid gave a wonderful lecture there where she talked about helping others and helping, um, something like art history with mathematics, pure mathematics, or things that come from, just the human brain and the way to think and solve problems. And I have to tell you something more about Ingrid, which is that this is something that almost all of you will be familiar with. When you take photos, it is saved as a JPEG file. And JPEG is a form of compression that is used to save the data which shows you your pictures. And Ingrid's mathematics is what led to JPEG. So Ingrid is someone who has been working at the interface of mathematics and society in that sense, and developing so many things which are useful for society. And what is intriguing is that she got really interested in restoration of classical works of art, things which had been destroyed during the World War or have got lost. There are only some pieces of things that are available. Her work has helped to recreate those artworks. I mean, so, it's inexplicable when you think about, as was quoted, mathematics is everywhere. In fact, Ingrid had this very interesting idea that if we had a sticker which said mathematics inside, and it was to be put on any object which had come out of mathematics, or mathematics could be used to think about it, then practically everything in the world would have a sticker which says mathematics inside. However, I think the problem that has happened, particularly in the last century, is that mathematicians have developed a language which has become so technical that they fail to realize that they have to communicate with society. And on the other side, the general public has had extremely bad experiences with mathematics at school. In fact, if you talk to most people and you tell them that you're a mathematician, the first reaction they have is, oh, you must be very intelligent. And the second reaction usually is, end of conversation. As though as a mathematician, they assume that you only think about mathematics and do mathematics. And I think both sides are responsible for this lack of dialogue which is there. As a mathematician, I feel very, very deeply that we must try to communicate our work to the general public. And it is actually, it should be part of our mandate to do so. And on the part of the general public, I would say that please put aside your bad experiences from school. Mathematics is much more than what you did in school. Those were essentially techniques and methods which you had to master. Mathematics is a way of life, it's a way of thinking, and there is much that you can appreciate about mathematics, and like you appreciate a piece of good art or poetry, which doesn't have to, which doesn't really need the high level of technical language that maybe some areas of, I mean, most areas of research and maths do. But mathematicians also have to provide for opportunities for this dialogue to happen. And I hope sincerely that with people like Ingrid and the next person that I'm going to share with you about, we will move more and more in that direction. So the next person actually won a prize during the 2018 ICM. And this is the prize, it's called the Gauss Prize, and it is given to a mathematician who has contributed to everyday life. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about David Donahue, who won the prize. And he won it for something which is of direct use in our lives. So here's David Donahue. And so let me share the screen and show you what Donahue looks like. So here's David Donahue. And it's really interesting and a contrast that Ingrid Dubashi worked on, how you can compress large data. So when you take a picture or when you want to store things, your space that is available to you is sparse, it's small. So a lot of her work went into figuring out how you can compress the data, but still be able to see what the data represents. Donahue, in fact, worked in the other direction. His work was, there are many times when the data that you can recover is very, very sparse. There's very limited data that is there with you. And somehow using that, you have to recreate or create a big picture. And in David Donahue's case, this happens to be initially his work was on trying to understand the layers of Earth. So when you want to study what the layers of Earth below are made up of, you can't just dig and find out. So there are technologies which send sound waves and other waves down, and then you see what gets reflected back. So the data that comes back to you is very little. And through that, somehow you have to recreate what the various layers of Earth look like. And all of this requires very important mathematics. And David Donahue's major contribution has been to the MRI the magnetic resonance procedure that we have, which is so essential for making medical diagnosis. So MRIs themselves are based on a result from pure mathematics. So typically what happens in an MRI are that you are sending rays through a three-dimensional object, which might be your head or parts of your body and so on. And so you have a reading when the ray enters the three-dimensional body and when it exits it. So you have a whole lot of information on what was the value before it entered and what is the value at the exit point. And there's a result in pure mathematics which says that if you know the values on the boundaries, you can actually recreate the picture inside. And that's basically what how the MRIs actually began, or what was called computer tomography began. But MRIs are, they require big equipment and it takes a long time. If any of you have had the misfortune of having an MRI scan, particularly if it is of your brain, you are, sent into this machine. You have to keep absolutely still, and while the readings are taken, and it could take up to half an hour for it to do, and it's extremely expensive. So people who are claustrophobic, children, they're all they're unable to do this. I mean, they're unable to even get an MRI scan done. And so much of your medical diagnosis depends on the MRI scan. I speak from experience here. My father at some point had to get an MRI scan, and he was someone who used to suffer from claustrophobia. In David Donohue's case, he got extremely interested in MRI because it's again because of a personal experience that he suffered. His father got a very bad form of prostate cancer, and he succumbed to it, and succumbed to it rather quickly. And what David Donohue realized at that point was that if the MRIs were either cheaper or faster, you could actually have a preventive scanning that could happen, which would catch things like prostate cancer well in advance, pretty much like a mammogram does for breast cancer. So the idea was to have, improve technology to the extent where MRIs become cheaper and faster, so that one could move into a pre-condition diagnosis called a manogram, which would then test men for prostate cancer and see whether the possibility of that is going to occur or not. And that is what led David Donohue to work with, doctors to understand what was happening. And he came up with the mathematics, which then have made MRIs much, much faster. And in fact, the mathematics or that he developed for this has entered into practical usage already. So the top MRI machine makers in the world have already patented and used David Donohue's mathematics, and MRIs have become much faster now, and hopefully therefore will be much cheaper as well. So what I want you to take away from this is that David is a mathematician. His work is highly technical, maybe from the realm of pure mathematics, but it's his experiences as a human being in society which led him to think about using his mathematics to improve MRIs. And as mathematicians, we have to remember that we live in society. As scientists, we have to remember that the science that we do should, we have to think about the ethics and the morals that go into the science that we do. Particularly, the last thing that I would like to say is that we have been in a extraordinary period in this last year because of COVID. And the virus has, turned the way we see and view life completely upside down. And because it was a new virus, we are still trying to understand the different manifestations and the different impacts that it is having. And I think long after this episode, and I hope there will be an after this episode, we will still be examining things. But what struck me is that there is no way to understand COVID or its impact unless all the disciplines come together. So when you have a new virus, you have scientists, biologists, chemists trying to understand what the virus particle looks like, what are the parts of it which are the things that cause more infection, what are the mutations that are occurring. Today the news is that there is a variant of this virus which has come into the United Kingdom and probably South Africa, and which is far more contagious than the previous version, even though they feel that it will not make people sicker. So our understanding of the virus, from its structure, from its genome pattern, all of that requires scientists. But on the other hand, you need the mathematicians to model the spread of COVID. You need social sciences and humanities to understand how human beings will behave, particularly when COVID related restrictions come in. And unless all of this comes together, we are not going to be able to tackle this situation in a way in which the world can move with a better foot forward. So, with these words, I would again like to urge that we should not be seeing social sciences, humanities, mathematical sciences, and other disciplines as apart, but that each is extremely important to try and understand the whole. And so, as a mathematician, I would like to know or be exposed to a lot more social sciences and humanities and the thinkings that come from that discipline. And I hope that it's also reciprocated on the other side. And with this, I will say thank you very much. And it's been an honor to be part of this function. And I thank Dr. Agarwal, Principal, for giving me this opportunity. And to Jagaddaji, who actually persuaded me. I was trying to tell him that, to do something online is always unreliable because you never know when the internet connection might go. But they convinced me that, no, your Airtel connection will work very well. And it has actually worked well. And of course, the last thing I would like to say is that I was very, very pleased to see Nirmalya. He's an old friend, and I hadn't seen him for a very long time. And it was nice to see him today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You, ma'am. It was a wonderful lecture, and you will not believe it was much better than if you would have been in this hall. It was so clear. Everything was, it was interesting to hear, and there was no glitch in internet, and you can see the technology has really changed, and this is the way technology should help the academics. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Geeta ma'am, for such a wonderful and an insightful lecture. Moving on to sharing some more anecdotes from Ramanujan's life. The number 1729 holds significance in Ramanujan's and Hardy's life, and it is termed as the Hardy-Ramanujan number. So there is a short story behind this number, and it dates back to the year 1919, when these two famous mathematicians, Professor Hardy and Ramanujan, were deliberating on the significance and relevance of this number 1729, which is also known as a taxi cab number. Professor Hardy's view of this number was that it is a rather dull and a boring number, and there is nothing unusual to this number. But Ramanujan contradicted and said that it is a magical number in the sense that it is the only smallest number that can be expressed as a sum of two positive cubes in two different ways. So this is a short story behind this number, and this number has a significant interpretation, and it is also known as a taxi cab number. After Ramanujan's death, he left behind 3 notebooks and a sheet of pages, which are till now being proven correct by the researchers. The year after Ramanujan's death, Nature, which is a British scientific journal, has listed Ramanujan among other distinguished researchers, scientists, and mathematicians on a calendar of scientific pioneers who had achieved eminence. Ramanujan's home state, which is Tamil Nadu, they observe this day on Ramanujan's birthday as the State IT Day. The famous Hollywood movie, The Man Who Knew Infinity, was also based on Ramanujan's life. With this short anecdotes and short stories, I now request Professor Ujjwal Kumar Singh to deliver the 8th annual Ramanujan Memorial Lecture on the topic Scientific Temper, Humanism, and the Spirit of Inquiry, Taking Duties Seriously. But before I call you, sir, I would like to read a brief bio about you and your achievements. So Dr. Ujjwal Kumar Singh is a professor in the Department of Political Science, University of Delhi. He obtained his master's degree from University of Delhi itself and a PhD from School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. He was earlier a fellow at the Center for Contemporary Studies, Nehru Memorial Museum and Library in Delhi. He is the author of books, Political Prisoners in India, that has been published by Oxford University Press, and The State, Democracy and Anti-Terror Laws in India, that has been published by Sage Publications. He has co-edited the book Towards Legal Literacy, an Introduction to Law in India, and that has been published again by Oxford University Press. He is also the editor of the book Human Rights and Peace, Ideas, Laws, Institutions and Movements, that has been published by Sage Publications. His co-authored book, The Election Commission of India, has been published by OUP in October 2019. His articles have appeared in several national and international journals. Professor Singh has been a visiting fellow in universities in India and abroad. He was the ICCR Rajiv Gandhi Visiting Chair Professor in Contemporary Indian Studies at University of Technology, which is in Sydney, Australia. And he is also the honorary visiting fellow at the Julius Maximilian University of Würzburg, Germany. We welcome you, sir. The lecture will be followed by an open house discussion. So I request the audience to be ready with their questions as soon as the lecture is over. I now request you, sir, to deliver your lecture. May we have a huge round of applause for him, please?
Thank you so much, Principal Agrawal ji, Jen Chaudhary ji, Lata ji, Nirmalaya ji, and other colleagues over here, entire sorority and fraternity of Ramanujan College. It's a great honor for me because honestly, on this theme, when Ramanujan Day is being celebrated, my only chance encounter with Ramanujan is And I was when I went to the temple, and someone told me that he used to sit close to this pillar. And I never could visualize, like, that encounter with the spirit of Ramanujan, which I had, will bring me to Ramanujan College and give a lecture on 8th annual Ramanujan Memorial Lecture. So thank you so much for giving me this privilege. It's complete an honor which I can not express in any way. I can thank you. And after Gita Venkatraman, and I could add this, where we actually learned about problem solving mathematics. So whether it's David Donahue and MRI thing which we got, and many others. So that was such a beautiful illustration of how maths could be connected with our daily lives. I'm trained in political science, so I'll bring a social science perspective, and that's what Dr. Agrawal wanted me to do, and also probably college must have this integrated approach. And I always go back to the foundation text, architect Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who brought this text, and at least 2-3 places where science comes in. One is when we talk of animal husbandry, there's mention about that it has to be organized on scientific lines. And another is when we talk of fundamental duties, there's a reference to scientific temper. Now, I thought what we can learn from the contribution of Ramanujan is inculcating scientific temper, which is not about science only, it's about everyone around. So, and I'll go back to specifically this provision, which is in fundamental duty section. But let me read out parts of the lecture which I prepared. And Gita also closed her remarks with COVID-19, and maybe also started with COVID-19. Dr. Agrawal also referred to COVID-19. So let me bring in COVID-19. So this is the appropriate time to talk about scientific temper. Scientists are doing the work, but if you go through the text, which is there in fundamental duties, it combines scientific temper with humanism, with spirit of inquiry. So the moment we think of science, if we do not combine with humanism, it remains divided. So science with human face, and humanism, which is built upon the foundation of science. That's what we're looking at. And so, so in terms of knowledge system, it will have to be made comprehensible and accessible to all as a shared knowledge for humanity. So science is somewhere which is shared structure, shared method, and shared habit. That's how one is going to look at it. A second reason for the consciousness of the responsibility we owe to each other and our future generations, a responsibility which speaks of human endeavor, empathy towards fellow beings, and the desire to make the world a better place for everyone. Now I'm referring to the duties part because we have talked about rights, and which is very important, but also how responsibilities and duties really matter during COVID times. Because if we take care of ourselves, then we are taking care of others. So we can go beyond COVID and this pandemic only when it's collective enterprise. It's not individual enterprise. It's not self which is only involved over there. It's self and collective which is involved over there. So our duty then as a social scientist, we're expected to find explanations for the whole range of human relationships is to place ourselves in the shoes of the most disadvantaged and see how the world look like from that location. It is from this location of responsibility that the meaning and articulation of rights becomes relevant and meaningful. It is our responsibility to develop the capacity to place ourselves in life world different from ours. And from that location, develop an ethic of public action that is based on empathy. I mean, we have seen the positive thing coming out now in terms of vaccine. But if we just turn back and see past 8 months, 9 months, we have seen people toiling, we have seen migrant laborers walking back, we have seen people who could not afford the bulk of health facility, and then they couldn't survive. So we need to constantly empathize. We need to constantly connect with each other. That's the spirit. It's only in that spirit we can, engage with pandemic. And do not forget, right on borders of Delhi, there are thousands of farmers who are sitting. We call that resistance. But the stories which you'll find is hardly any resistance in terms of opposition. The stories which you'll find over there is a lot of collective effort, a humanness of shared, living as such. So there are people who are donating food items, there are people who are actually charging mobile phones, so what you get is a new live world which is coming over there. In pandemic, with pandemic, what you're getting is also a different kind of shared life which is emerging, right? What kind of scientific temper is there? I believe if thousands could survive in pandemic sitting on the roads, it speaks of the courage and also the attitude to engage science, but also to engage for the livelihood and for the rights. So when we take up fundamental duties, so this makes, it helps us to revisit our constitutional value, the spirit of just means, which is embodied in constitutional morality, spread across the preamble of the Constitution and fundamental rights, and also fundamental duties in Article 51A of the Constitution, which from the suspect origins in 42nd Amendment, political scientists are aware that this section was added during emergency, national emergency 75 to 77. So there is suspect origins. Having said that, we still sustain this, we hold on to this because it carries different meanings. So I'm not talking about duty in the sense what authoritarian regimes demand, complete loyalty without question. And I think nobody else, Dr. Agrawal actually referred to that. When you refer to liberal democracies, it's not about that Mussolini kind of thing where you have absolute loyalty and nothing else. Your loyalty is also dependent on both the obligation and the duties as well as the rights. So the scientific temper is about raising questions, about issue of curiosity, about issue of discovery. And that's what Jawaharlal Nehru talked about. I'll come to that. So the title which I put in Scientific Temper, Humanism, and the Spirit of Inquiry is a fundamental duty of all citizens, including those who have the responsibility to govern. So when we talk of this, remember it's not about citizens' duties only. It's about citizens' duties as well as those who govern, their duties towards its members who are part of that political community. The duty also opens up the dilemma of a country such as ours, where superstitions of the rich, this is a phrase I'm borrowing from Ashish Nandi, superstitions of the rich are allowed to endure, while those of the poor are considered atavistic, belonging to a world of ignorance from which they must be released. Now, we can't have this differential hypocritical position that superstition of the rich is accepted and of the poor is not. It also opens up the question about hegemony that science may assume, creating an instructive world, directing us to what are considered valid ways of thinking and rational ways of living. And I'm emphasizing valid and rational, right? If it's instructive, then probably there'll be doubt over there. It also makes us alert to how in our daily lives and also while we relate with people and make judgments about them, we constantly use standards that question beliefs, and on the other hand, we negotiate between words which are based on different logics of reason and superstition. I think when Nidhi referred to the idea of God and Ramanujan thought, probably we actually straddling both world of spirituality and world of reason, and Ramanujan combines both. So I'll come to that later. I think Srinivas Ramanujan was grappling with this dilemma too, but I'll come to that point later at the end. So let's focus on scientific temper. And what Jawaharlal Nehru had to say. So much beyond 42nd Amendment, national emergency, this was talked about by Nehru in his discovery of India, 1946. So it's close to about 80, 90 years, but the idea is so important. And that's what Nehru says. The adventurous and yet critical temper of science. And I like the word adventurous. Now, we are trained not to be adventurous, but if you're not adventurous, then probably you're not going to take risks, come with something new. So the adventurous and yet critical temper of science, the search for truth and new knowledge, the refusal to accept anything without testing and trial, the capacity to change previous conclusions in the face of new evidence, the reliance on observed fact and not on preconceived theory, the hard discipline of the mind, all that is necessary, not merely for the application of a science, but for life itself and the solution of its many problems. And as a way of life, a process of thinking, a method of acting, and associating with our fellow men. Now, this is Nehru. Nehru was statesman, and Nehru who becomes a political leader, but his own idea about scientific temper is about discovery, about adventure, and not accepting something which is given, rather test and arrive at that, which will be much more convincing to us. This was a quality, Nehru says, that all Indians should cultivate and imbibe. One did not have to be scientist to have a scientific temper, and that's important, right? So someone like political scientists or sociologists, and that's what the message which was given over here. We do have our curiosity, we do have our base to discover things, we do want to learn, right? One need not be scientists in the sense of discipline as such. It is also true that being a practicing or professional scientist does not necessarily endure that one has a scientific temper. A temper that is displayed and is at work when we live our lives ordinarily at home and in public spaces. How we look at institutions such as marriage or gender relations, caste religions and social relations, and even how we respond to a crisis such as present pandemic. In fact, when Professor Geeta spoke, there was a reference to this. So she's worked so much also bringing forth the gender dimension of sciences and maths. As a common, when you look at what kind of trust do we have in science, you have two contrasting pictures. You may have heard that Joe Biden, president-elect, he took vaccine in a public demonstration, right? So it was publicly he took vaccine, it was televised. So this is a public affirmation of science, raising issues of trust that people may have for what is largely inscrutable or in some cases tainted because of its association with corporate profit. So issues of ethics, issues of duties and responsibilities as much is concern of fraternity, which is known as scientific community or pharmaceutical companies. So even a president-elect in USA had to go public, right, and take vaccine because there's a trust deficit over there. So science would and does not have a final and absolute answer. It has to also develop trust among section of the people as such. And that's important. Those values need to be affirmed, and that the scientific temper does. If you see another picture, Bolsonaro, the Brazilian president, and his statement, if you remember, what did he say? He called COVID-19 just a little flu, right? And he said if you take this vaccine, some may turn into crocodile. Now, he's also a president, right? He refused to accept that there's something called pandemic. He suffered from pandemic, right? He was able to outlive that. But remember this, so this is one part. But other part is, remember what he's saying, he attacked the vaccine. Earlier he was completely, he said, no, there's nothing like pandemic. But he attacked the vaccine that could have side effects. It could turn a human being into a crocodile. A woman may start growing a bear, and man may start speaking in effeminate voice. But none of this will be a problem for the vaccine company. The Pfizer contract protected from any penalty, mobilizing suspicion for science. Bolsonaro, who has steadfastly refused to wear a mask, declared that he would not be vaccinated. Now, whether he's vaccinated or not, but remember, if we have this critical faculty of questioning, why shouldn't we question Pfizer also? It seems there's no other way, there's only one way, and that's the vaccine. But why have companies actually put a clause over there that anything what happens, they cannot be challenged? If you see the ticker, if you're watching news, if you see the ticker, constantly the Serum Institute, the chairperson, constantly is asking government that you have to protect pharmaceutical industries from cases. Question is false or correct. All I'm saying is science and pharmaceutical business cannot be left to them. We as the citizens also have a right to question. We are absolutely, we are grateful for them, for the scientific community who created a vaccine in kind of, remarkable time. But if there are doubts, we must raise, and that's how science develops. I had this collection and then got this Science and Society text, a lecture delivered by MGK Menon. Now, many people don't know MGK Menon, but MGK Menon was very important as a scientist and an advisor. And this lecture series is known as Sardar Patel Memorial Lectures. So it's not that Sardar Patel was always remembered. So there's a whole series of lectures. I've got copies of those lectures published by Publication Division, Ministry of Information Broadcasting. This 1973 lecture. And again, he quotes Nehru on this. This is the text of the lecture, Science and Society. Nehru expressed in remarkably clear terms the basic difference between the approach of science and the manner in which society likes to function. He said, what ultimately does science represent? I suppose the active principles of science is discovery. And I'll latch on to this discovery. And what is the active principle of any social framework of society? Normally, it is conservatism. We want to carry on the way we want to. We don't want to change. We want to be happy. And once in a while, pandemic comes and completely shakes all of us. We can't live the way we. And that's what, again, Dr. Ravali was referring to, what it did. And then you actually ended with a beautiful note, about more family members joining during pandemic. I like that. So conservatism, thus we come up against a certain inherent conflict between the principle of society, and which is one of continuity, and conservatism, and principle of science, which is one of discovery, which brings about change and challenges that continuity. The result is that a scientific worker, although is praised and patted on the back, nevertheless not wholly approved of. He come and accepts things as they are, and we see that, normally speaking, science seldom has the facilities that it deserves, except when misfortune comes to a country in the shape of war or the like. And remember initial days of pandemic. I hope we don't miss that lesson. Think of the nurses who were working. Think of the doctors who were working, and they hardly had that safeguard which other communities had. So the joke was, if you can pay millions and millions to a footballer or to a artist, what were you paying to the doctors and nurses? And nurses still went on strike. Remember, 2 days back, nurses at AIMS, they gave a call that our demands are not being met. In one of the Delhi hospitals, they were not paid salaries. So now this is a criminal act. How can you do that? In fact, any data would tell you that, when we started after independence, 0.1% was spent on sciences. Then it was increased to 0.5, that is MGK Menon data. Now probably it has increased more, but still not commensurate with the challenges and the crisis. So it's not that, during crisis we have to wait. We need to take care of science fraternity, and which includes a large number, from labs to doctors to patients to industries as such. So it is interesting that Nehru says, it is interesting to see the conflict between the normal conservatism or a static society and the normal revolutionary tendency of the scientist discovery, which often changes the basis of that society. It changes living conditions and the conditions that govern human life and human survival. And all the examples that Professor Geeta gave us, it's all changed our life. And that's very important to note. There's more of Nehru, but I'll come to Gandhi. Now, there are 7 sins which Gandhi talked about. And in Hind Swaraj, and he says we need to overcome. And he says politics without principles, commerce without morality, wealth without work, science without humanity. Now, it's not an accident. Remember, it's early 20th century text. And what comes in fundamental duties as scientific temper and humanism, in fact, in the entire debate, you don't find reference to Gandhi, but actually Gandhi talked about science and humanity. So you practice science without humanity is dangerous, right? So Gandhi talked about this long time back in his Swaraj. So science without humanity, pleasure without conscience, and worship without sacrifice. Now, these are indicators what we give. But I wanted, all of us to go back to Gandhi's idea, why, how it get incorporated into fundamental duties. And we all know Ramanujan was blessed with a wonderful mother. All that anecdotes, if you read, and then the stories and you read. So, Sunil Khilnani's small essay uses the term tiger mother. She took care of Ramanujan, and when one visited the temple, because her mother used to sing in that temple, and probably the same anecdote you'll find that his, this part of the body, right? It got blackened because he used to practice mass on slate and used to rub, right? Got blackened over there. But the mother used to take care. So you'll find, mother figure and such important figure over here. In Gandhi also that mattered most. So Gandhi says, I learned from an illiterate but wise mother that all rights to be deserved and preserved come from duty well done. Thus, the very right to live accrues to us when we do the duty of citizenship of the world. From this one fundamental statement, perhaps it is easy to define duties of man and women and correlate every right to some corresponding duty to be performed. So Gandhi learned from his mother, right? So entire his upvas, thing comes from mother because she was practicing a religious person. So Gandhi constantly, he turns duties into rights and rights into duties. There's a correlation over there. So I do remember last November, when Constitution Day was celebrated, if anyone remember, that was the time PM and President, they were all together, and it was an important occasion, and constantly Prime Minister was referring to fundamental duties. It was live telecast in all institutions we're supposed to hear, and I was part of, I was there in Gujarat, Central City, and it was being live telecast, and there was constant emphasis upon fundamental duty, right? And it was November, sir. And what you find 26th November, and as you said, November, December pandemic came, lockdown came in March, and what was most important during pandemic was our duties. Duties to protect ourselves, duty to ensure that others are protected, duties that we reach out to others, right? In that sense, this is absolutely important. So there's at least one text and one declaration, which is called Universal Declaration of Responsibilities. This is 1997. Helmut Schmidt was part of this Declaration of Human Responsibilities. It is this, I found this text in a report, which was Justice J.S. Verma. Remember Justice J.S. Verma, who was also involved in when Nirbhaya issue happened, and then he was part of that commission. So it was Justice Verma committee, which came with a committee report on fundamental duties of the citizen, report of the committee set up by Government of India to operationalize the suggestions to teach fundamental duties to the citizens of the country. And in this, he refers to this Universal Declaration of Human Responsibilities. And in this declaration, there's a reference to Mahatma Gandhi's 7 sins, and there's emphasis that, and they actually, this report talks about in 1997, right? Yeah, 1999. And this is how it concludes. Globalization, however, has given us a new urgency to the teaching of Gandhi and other ethical leaders. Violence on our television screens is now transmitted by satellites across the planet. Speculations in faraway financial markets can devastate local communities. The influence of private tycoons now approaches the power of government, and unlike politicians, there's no accountability for this private power except for their personal sense of responsibility. Never has the world needed a declaration of human responsibilities more. Now you're talking about last 30, 40 years of globalization process. Way back in 1997, this group of intellectuals, they sat and they told us, they, the urgency, why and how Gandhi was needed over here. Let me conclude with what Nidhi referred in the morning. And I take it this way. This is again from Sunil Khilnani's Incarnations, India in 50 Lives. It's a beautiful work, right? With different, thinkers and, philosophers mentioned over there. The ability to grapple almost tangibly with the infinite was becoming a hallmark of his thought, Ramanujan's thought. Ramanujan once told a fellow Indian mathematician that an equation had no meaning for him unless it expressed a thought of God. This is what made me talk in the morning. He claimed his most impressive results came to him in a dream, inscribed on his tongue by Hindu goddess Namgiri, an important force in his life and in the life of his family. This claim has often been used as an explanation for his remarkable genius, attributing it to the power of intuition or more profound spiritual power. Srinivas may, however, be seen as articulating a coexistence of what are seen as two opposite tendencies, and attempting through this to negotiate and build a bridge between two worlds and worldviews. And that's important because when you look at his family, Brahmins, they can't go, across the seas, right? And how, so in terms of identity location and in terms of his knowledge, which is growing at a space which completely outmatches the existing social reality. So what are they doing? It is an attempting to negotiate and build a bridge between two worlds and worldviews, that of his mother, family, and community, and outside world. In particular, the modern world of rational arguments, where his theories could be validated in a scientific idiom. Namagiri was a way, conscious or otherwise, for Ramanujan to immerse himself and make his genius compatible with the world of his family, and simultaneously look towards a different future in the world where his remarkable talents would be recognized and mentored. He was, therefore, also in communication with mathematicians in England and declared that Namagiri had released him and allowed him to leave India for foreign shows to work with G.H. Hardy. So, this God, the spiritual power, actually gave him power to reach out and cross the oceans and make India proud by coming with these. See, there are many instances I can talk in terms of superstition and scientific temper, rationalists who have been murdered in the country, superstition and scientific temper. There are many instances as such. I won't go into that, but courts after courts have constantly referred to the fact that even in capital Delhi, superstition persists. So I came across a judgment of Delhi court, not High Court, one of the Delhi lower court, where one woman is burnt, another burnt to death, another is alive, and they were burnt, quote unquote, because they were practicing witchcraft. And only apart from punishing, the judge actually, comes back and refers to Article 51A, the fundamental duties section of the Constitution, and says the citizen cannot perform their duty to develop scientific temper unless there's a conducive atmosphere in the society to do so. Remember, it's not just individual. You're not going to go to study and science and maths and develop temper, scientific temper. It's part of society, the culture of the society, which has to be there. So the conducive atmosphere has to be developed. The education to the masses is must, not only the literal sense, but also to educate citizens against falling the trap of unscientific methods and beliefs which are dogmatic and unorthodox, not having any scientific basis. And then he refers to idea of Chudail and witchcraft which persists. And the judge is saying that you need to develop. It has to become part and parcel of our everyday life. So one part of fundamental duties is part of our syllabus, which deals with environment. So there's a compulsory, section course which is taught at all levels, right? Undergraduate level, school level. But scientific temper does not have that kind of thing. It does not have that kind of basis as such. Maybe when we teach environment, we may bring scientific temper, but it's absolutely important. So in the past many years, this idea of fundamental duties being taught was discussed. I always felt that, okay, this is imposition. More you think and realize that each and every section which is part of A to H, which is part of fundamental duties, is absolutely important, not for individual or citizen, it's important for humanities. So it's not a surprise that Joe Biden, when he's going to become president, take charge, First thing which is done is his task group on climate change. Right? So all those things, and this college is the best example. And I had, I'm really thankful to people. He took me around, and I saw those plants where water treatment is taking place, and water storage will be taking place. So these are not just administrative tick mark. These are actually life, because water preservation, greenery, plants which have been set up, the names which have been put over there, again the plant, the scientific name. These are our life. So going beyond classroom and to develop a critical pedagogy, we need to have a scientific temper and create a conducive atmosphere where there's a respect for attitude, a scientific attitude. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If we have any questions to be asked, we can take those questions one by one, please.
Could I ask one? Sorry.
Anybody who has any questions?
Ma'am, just 1 second.
Madam,
Can I ask?
Ma'am, just 1 second. We are just switching the video.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank Professor Singh for a very fascinating insight into a conjunction between humanities, science, and ethics.
Hello. Yes. Can
So
you?
my question to you is, and since you are a
Ma'am,
political
just we are switching the
scientist,
video. Just
what happens when science is hijacked, usurped by a coterie of power? In the sense that if you think of nuclear power, if you think of wars, even the COVID initially was suggested as a part of a biological weapon. What happens to this conjunction then, sir, in terms of ethics and humanities, and when power usurps science and scientific,
ma'am, can you just speak up?
endeavor?
Yeah, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Because there has been science with the powerless people also. Our folk artists, folk craftsmen, they all use some science, some kind of science. All craft has some science behind it. But that is for humanity, where there is a science which actually goes in for purposes of
Yeah, sorry. Professor Ujjwal Singh, I really enjoyed your lecture. And I thought that the point that you made about scientific temper is not just learning science or doing mathematics. I think it's particularly relevant. I wanted to ask you, how would you compare critical thinking with scientific temper? Are they one and the same? Critical thinking is something that a lot of us as academics want to inculcate in our students. And so I would like to hear your thoughts on what are they, to your mind, one and the same, or do you see a difference between the two? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You are doing it so well that I can't do that way. So I'm really grateful the way you framed the entire thing, and I've got the issue. So briefly, if I want to enter, it's a huge question which you're raising. It's not, and we have illustrations, as you rightly pointed out, nuclear energy, how it be transformed into nuclear weapon, and the benchmark is nuclear energy just cannot be controlled at some point of time. That's what I learned as a layperson. So you keep on controlling the way, but one thing is to talk about power of science. And you're referring to one of power of science which is there, but there's also social power. Because science after all exists, develops in a human community, and since civilization arose, there are different ways and different methods developed. It is within a human collective called human society where the power equations and how the interest and power, when they come together for certain ends, then there will be use or misuse of science. So probably you were referring to that, and in that sense, pandemic has given a huge lesson, and I don't think it's going to sink in our mind even now. Probably down the line, or 10 years, 20 years later, we'll reflect back, because in a crisis time, you look for survival. Everyone, is involved in their own survival. Business are gone, families under crisis, jobs have gone, right? And scientific fraternity, especially pharmaceutical industry. So if you look at the market, and probably Dr. Wali, you can tell us more, where the money has gone, right? Now all these things are interconnected. In that sense, and you absolutely rightly pointed out, Mahatma Gandhi is central. Issues of ethics, right? So in that sense, I mean, it's like constantly, you keep on reading that part in our constitution. So scientific temper is not a separate clause. In the same clause, scientific temper, humanism, and pursuit of inquiry is there, right? So without our inquiry, our discovery, our curiosity, science can't develop, and science has to be tempered. It has to be seen along with humanism. And many Indian thinkers talked about it, from radical humanism, right, integral humanism. So when Roy talked about it, Upadhyay talked about it. But humanism is something which is critical, and that's probably many times we miss. See, none of these are answers. These are my intervention. I mean, I'm really grateful I get more time to think and reflect, self-reflect. Now, Professor Geeta, so critical thinking and scientific thinking, probably critical thinking would be more than scientific thinking, and this is something which I'm loudly thinking over here. In what ways? Because any critical thinking is also about ethical thinking. Minus values. I'm not saying that science does not have a value. Science has enormous values. The ethical parameters over there also, but ethical parameters are added over there. So we have trained ourselves to actually replicate human beings, but probably there's ethical principle which stop that you're not going to do that. You have done with sheep, you have done with other animals, but you are not replicating human beings and not creating image of. So ethics would be, and in centuries to come, years to come, that ethics is absolutely important, and who's going to actually frame that ethical thing? It's not Mahatma Gandhi. Scientific fraternity themselves have to evolve. But critical thinking is as much a moral, ethical thinking. Right? It's much more in terms of methods. How do we do that? So one remembers, and I've spoken as a part of FDP program over there. I'm really grateful for those opportunities. When we think of Paulo Freire and how he brings in critical pedagogy, where from container model of education, we move to dialogical model. Right? Now, I'm not aware, I've not had that access to scientific fraternity and sorority over there, but how much of a dialogical process happens over there? Example which Professor Geeta gave is more of a dialogical nature. Fine. So here you have a scientist whose father suffered from that, and then in that process that gave impetus, and one comes across an answer, and it may be not the near and dear one. So actually arrive at something through that. But critical thinking is far more larger and deeper. Scientific thinking will be a narrow version of scientific thinking, where it's about verification, where it's about facts and laws of the facts. Gronowski talks about science as the law of facts, not just facts. It will be slightly narrower than critical thinking, which is far more value-based principle. Professor Chaudhary, absolutely means anyone, a human, you're born, and I'm sure there have been mapping of what human mind is when a human Homo species is born, a human species is born at such point of time, and the kind of curiosity which you have. I don't want to end on this note, but what has happened, and probably things have to change, that much of education is about not opening up, rather closing those curiosities. So we all know when you go to a nursery class, it's anarchy. It's just, we actually, as the colleagues in colleges and cities, we meet students who have been socialized and adapted to a certain way of doing that. But someone who's there engaging nursery classes or class 1 or 2, those are amazing teachers, because they need to have patience, they need to have answers, kind of thing. So before I came, and when I read Ramanujan part, in Mr. Khalani's came, I learned about, I was over in corridor, about how different ways when you can add number 4. So there are 5 ways you can add and arrive at 4. 3 plus 1, 2 plus 2, 1 plus 1, etc., etc. And then what struck me, I'll ask someone, today is 12th December 2020. If you add all, it will come to 30. Fine. I read that for 100, all those combinations will be 200 combinations. But for 13, how many combinations you need in order to add? Like, for 4, you can have 1 plus 3, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 1, likewise. So for 13, how many combinations you will have? So with infinite numbers, if you can play with numbers, and the kids play with numbers, but gradually what happens, they move into life cycles where, gradually if you ask someone, what do you want to become? Then they will all say they want to become MBAs or something like this, right? And that limits the thing. So you're absolutely right. We are born with that, but we need platforms to develop that. And that's what Ramanujan College is doing, right? That's what we have to attend. Platform where this curiosity grows rather than it's crushed. So absolutely, I agree with you, sir. So thank you so much, sir.
Any mathematical question with that?
She has left.
No, Professor Geeta will answer
I'm sorry. She's there.
Sir, I think at times science also goes against the idea of scientific temper. You were talking about idea of India, that Sudhir Khilani had rightly discussed about that Newtonian science, a kind of civilizational paradigm which not only prevents other kind of scientific inquiry, which can pose a larger challenge that there is consensus about that Newtonian science. Like we see that when we talk of civilizational value or scientific temper, like kind of civic virtue, civic responsibility, the idea of friendliness, the idea of neighborliness, this is much more, this is there in the third part. But when we say in terms of Nobel Prize, that if we see the list of Nobel Prizes with Harvard, Massachusetts, Stanford, Princeton, so all the universities have more than 130 Nobel Prizes. So where is scientific temper? The kind of science COVID has created. If it's a biological weapon, then what kind of scientific temper is this? Because it is directly posing a threat to the very idea of scientific temper and humanism. That is basically innovation, that is basically civic responsibility, that is basically about civic virtue, cooperation. So in that sense, I think that great idea of science is somehow blocking the scope of scientific temper.
Hmm. Very rightly
This
said.
was-
All right.
Any more questions?
Let's go.
Moving on to the last segment, I would just last to state one last quotation by Ramanujan before we end this occasion. Ramanujan very rightly said, and I quote again, just as Shikha among peacocks and money are at the top of Nagas, in the same way, Vedang and Shastras are at the top of mathematics. The Hindi translation of which means, जैसे मोरों में शिखा और नागों में मणि का सबसे ऊपर स्थान है, वैसे ही शास्त्रों में और वेदांगों में गणित का सर्वश्रेष्ठ स्थान है. With this, I end this inauguration of the Ramanujan Memorial Lecture, and we have with us Professor Sanjay Kapoor, our chairman, sir, who would like to speak a few words about this occasion. Has he joined?
No, I don't.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
The last segment of this inauguration come Foundation Day, I would like to hand over the stage to Mr. Prayadav to officially give the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Nidhi. A very warm and lovely afternoon to everyone present here and who are viewing this inaugural lecture live through the Ramanujan College YouTube channel. It indeed is, a privilege for me to propose this formal vote of thanks for this resounding event, which was quite a success. So I must extend my thanks to the backbone, the people who were the backbone of this event, our gardeners, our housekeeping staff for maintaining the hygiene, for the aesthetic eye they have, and for the lovely rangoli which you all people saw in, when you entered the college. And then I would like to extend my thanks to our technical team, Mr. Narendra Kumar, Mr. Ravinder Vish, Mr. Anil, Mr. Prashant, Mr. Vinod, and Mr. Akhil. Our academic staff, our accounting staff, and finally the catering staff. Thank you so much for all the willingness and for all the motivation, for all the involvement you guys have put in for putting together this event. I extend my most sincere thanks to the organizing committee of this event, of this program, and specifically to Mr. Prakhar Vadva for coordinating the nitty-gritty, online nitty-gritty of this program. Further, a big thank you to Ms. Nidhi Mathur for wonderfully conducting this event. With her own style, she adds up that extra flair to any event she anchors. I must also mention here my deepest sense of gratitude to the coordinators of this program, Dr. Kelata, Dr. N. Samantha, and Mr. James Chaudhary. They, their way of working is quite meticulous, but they add fun to it, and the whole process looks very seamless once they are in the team. We have been very fortunate to have with us our special guest, Dr. Ashwini Kumar, Dr. Ravi Mishra, Dr. Dev Bhardwaj, who is also the treasurer of a governing body, Ramanujan College. And now coming to the main people of this event, our guest of honor for today, Professor Geeta Venkatraman, and a keynote speaker, Professor Ujjwal Kumar Singh. I think, without summarizing what these two have said, but we all can agree that we need to cultivate a sense of empathy today. Whether we talk about science, whether we talk about humanities, if we do not have compassion for our fellow human beings, there is no point of talking any number of degrees or thesis or anything. So that's what I believe the crux of today's memorial lecture was. So thank you so much, sir. And thank you so much, ma'am, for being so gracious and accepting our request and coming and delivering such a thoughtful and engaging lecture. And last, I would thank the go-ahead attitude of a principal, sir, because Without him, it wouldn't have been possible at all. So thank you so much, Dr. Agarwal, for always being the motivating factor, always teaching us the work ethic which we all are learning from you. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry if I forgot any name. I thank everyone again. Thank you for being here. Thanks the audience for being a part of our session. Thank you. I please request you to move for lunch.
Thank you, Dr. Ashwani. Thank you for joining. Thanks a lot. You can unmute and speak.
You are welcome. You are welcome. It's really an auspicious occasion, and you are performing it very well. Every aspect, every move has been taken very well, and people will do remember such occasion. It's great.
It's all blessings of friends and people like you on this institution who are always there to encourage us, and we keep on doing. Thank you very much.
It went very well. Dr. Agarwal went very well. I mean, they spoke very well. I mean, this was what exactly was required for today.
Excellent, excellent. I'm glad that you liked it. Thank you, sir.